Amidst a bloody red aura, a warrior stands with eyes glowing like hell, clutching his sword and ready to kill, while sparks fly around him. Energy ignites in his fists, making a terrifying sound announcing the start of the attack. This fire-wreathed fighter rushes at tremendous speed amidst the astonishment of those around him, releasing a hot breath from his mouth. Suddenly, a man holding a fan with cold features blocks his way, asking him mockingly what he thinks he is doing, revealing he is just a fraud claiming to be a dignified elder. The fiery fighter's anger ignites, attacking the young scholar and mocking him for being just a small researcher who knows nothing. But in the blink of an eye, blood scatters everywhere, as the fighter is cut down and his attack blocked by a swift movement from soldiers next to the young scholar. The massive body falls to the ground covered in blood, while the young scholar stands above him with emotionless features, and the scent of blood wafts through the place. Soon the sky begins to weep, and rain pours heavily to wash away the blood, and the smell begins to fade gradually as the young man leaves the battlefield. This young man is not just an ordinary scholar, but a person born with the heavenly military body, a rare gift that makes his five senses developed to an extreme degree. It is a talent that appears only once every 100 years, transcending the logic of ordinary humans. If he wants to see, his eyes can penetrate curtains of rain and distinguish details of a distant palace, and he can detect a single drop of water falling with infinite precision. As he walks in the rain, two guards behind him talk mockingly, describing him as the unlucky scholar who wanders the Murim Alliance causing trouble instead of letting them rest. One of them complains that this scholar disturbs their peace and food with his movements. His companion asks him derisively if he thinks the scholar hears them, to which the other replies that the rain is heavy and no one can hear through it, suggesting they leave. But the truth is that he hears. He can pick up sounds across vast distances even amidst the noise of heavy rain. And among all those supernatural abilities, his insight remains the most terrifying feature. His memory goes back. When he passed the civil service exams at the age of 19, he simply believed he was smarter than others. But after joining the inspection office in the Murim Alliance and looking through the archives, he realized the truth of his possession of the heavenly military body. He could interpret the secrets of combat manuals with a single glance, and master them without any difficulty, which made him arrogant about his power and fearing nothing. However, his collision with the reality of the Jianghu, full of masters and monsters, woke him from his stupor. He quickly realized that someone with his abilities would become a target for everyone, and because he prefers books to martial arts anyway, he decided to hide his true abilities and what he could become. His future and the path he would take became unknown even to him. In the present, while feeling a special longing for his mother on this day, he stands inside a majestic palace. The silence is broken by a voice asking if he is the scholar Chayon, as he was summoned by the leader of the Namgung clan. Namgung Hak, the clan leader, appears with stern features and a blue aura surrounding him. He is the man the world gave a terrifying title, as one of the three swords of heaven. The leader stands before him with an aura of explosive blue energy filling the hall with terror and majesty. Chayon feels extreme tension, as if the leader is looking directly through his soul and revealing his secrets, wondering to himself why a man of this greatness would be interested in someone like him. The Namgung clan leader begins his speech with blunt frankness, cutting all introductions, so the young scholar wonders with a face covered in despair and seriousness if he has discovered the truth of his physical constitution. But he quickly moves past that with a strange request. He begs him sharply to turn his youngest son into a human being, in a clear reference to this son's misconduct. Chayon is surprised by this direct request, trying to say that he has already investigated the matter. The leader interrupts him, explaining that he heard about the depth of his insight and his learning from the inspection commander, and how he previously managed to rehabilitate one of the famous troublemakers in the Alliance. Chayon tries to explain that what happened with young master Peng Soun was just a misunderstanding, but the leader ignores the justification and moves immediately to Chayon's weak point, revealing his knowledge that he abandoned the path of the imperial palace to collect money to treat his mother. The leader throws his tempting offer, "Come with me, and I will treat your mother's illness." Chayon's features change to seriousness and sadness at the mention of his sick mother, realizing that her illness is not a simple matter that is easy to treat. The leader continues his offer with confidence, asking him to bring her to the clan so the divine physician can treat her personally. Shock hits Chayon upon hearing the name divine physician and the presence of a person of this status here, while the leader smiles smartly. The leader sets his only condition, to make his youngest son act like a proper human. In return, he pledges to send Chayon anywhere he desires after completing the mission, whether it is the Hanlim Academy or the Imperial Palace. Calculations run quickly in Chayon's head, a successful career and a cure for his mother by the best doctor. A firm and scary look forms in his eyes as he accepts the mission, vowing to make that son a human no matter the size of his mischief. The scene shifts to another place, where a reckless young man screams, cursing a maid, while water splashes in her face. He scolds her angrily for bringing a bowl of water instead of a wet towel as he requested, showing an exaggerated reaction. He raises his hand threatening to hit her, complaining about losing his focus because of her before his duel, calling her trash. At that moment, Chayon enters the room quietly, distracting the angry young man. The young man mocks him immediately upon seeing him, guessing from his appearance that he is the new writing teacher. Chayon confirms this, so the young man wonders with boredom why his father keeps sending these trivial scholars to him. The young man smiles maliciously, describing Chayon as vulgar and trivial. Chayon replies with a provocative smile, relaying what the patriarch said about his son, that he lacks knowledge and has many flaws. The young man's anger ignites and he smashes the table with his fist, screaming in the new scholar's face. Chayon watches this explosion calmly, noting that the young man does not hide his emotions and gets angry easily, then comments coldly that he seems to have piqued his interest now, while the maid trembles in fear in the background. The young man calms down a little, impressed by Chayon's boldness and courage which he hasn't been used to before. He approaches him with sharp features, admitting that no one dared to speak to him, Namgung Mobeck, in this way before. The young man proposes a bet. If Chayon doesn't run away by the end of the day, he will acknowledge him as his master and teacher. Chayon accepts the challenge immediately, but Chayon is not satisfied with words, asking smartly to leave concrete proof, because words are easily forgotten. Young Master Mobeck looks at him with surprise and annoyance, denouncing the request for a contract for such a matter, describing him as a meticulous and obsessive scholar. In the end, the young man agrees mockingly, showing willingness to write 10 contracts if he wants, unaware of the gravity of what he is doing, while finding the matter interesting. With a cunning smile, Chayon decides inwardly to provoke his opponent a little to reveal his true mettle, suggesting adding some bets to the contract to increase the tension. Mobeck agrees with great enthusiasm, considering this eccentric scholar loves competition just like him. Mobeck reveals his brutal condition, his eyes gleaming with madness. "I don't need money, but if I win, prepare to live as my slave for a whole year." Chayon considers this condition extremely childish, but agrees to it, finding some amusement in it. He hands him the written contract, so Mobeck coldly praises his handwriting, then asks him to follow him to teach him a lesson himself. Mobeck leaves the room laughing madly, vowing to teach this scholar the cruelty of reality, while Chayon watches him quietly. Chayon analyzes the young master's personality, describing him as quick to anger, genuinely enjoying things, and acting with an open heart, just like children. In the crowded city market, Mobeck's eyes shine like a small child upon seeing a noodle shop, forgetting his dignity completely, while thinking about how to fix that rude bastard's habit, referring to Chayon. While walking, Mobeck notices a huge warrior with a fierce appearance, then smiles maliciously, seizing the opportunity. With all his might, he slaps him on the back. The warrior screams angrily, asking who dared to do this. Mobeck pretends innocence and confusion in front of the angry warrior, asking about the meaning of this shouting. And with a malicious move, Mobeck points his thumb towards Chayon standing behind him, telling the warrior, ask him the reason, trying to implicate his teacher in the fight. Mobeck mocks Chayon internally, describing him as a scholar who only reads books, eager to see the terror of reality painted on his face. The warrior confronts Chayon with sharp looks, asking him sharply if he is the young master's follower, demanding an explanation. Chayon watches the situation with precise and cold analysis. He notices that the warrior did not draw his sword despite the insult, and that he is not from the evil factions, and is a stranger to the area because he dared to speak rudely to Mobeck, making him a perfect target for picking a safe fight. But suddenly, Chayon steps forward and bows with extreme respect to the warrior, offering a polite apology on behalf of the young master, surprising everyone. Chayon's sharp eyes fall on the 3-colored tassel tied to the warrior's sword hilt, so he smiles, saying, "You must be a warrior from the Songhui sect." The warrior is astonished that this stranger knows his identity, so Chayon continues, revealing confidently, "Of course I know, for I work for the Muram Alliance Inspection Office." Chayon continues to corner the warrior with information, reminding him of an old incident where his sect leader caused severe damage and had to pay bail, pointing out that it is confidential information known to only a few. Chayon whispers in the warrior's ear that he was the one who handled that case himself, so the warrior realizes with horror that he is standing before the mad scholar he heard about. The warrior's attitude changes completely, starting to apologize and sweat profusely in front of investigator Chayon, while the latter laughs to himself, wondering if his nickname has spread this much. Mobeck stands stunned in the back, not comprehending why this strong warrior bowed and feared a mere scholar so suddenly. Chayon and Mobeck leave the place, while Chayon waves goodbye to the warrior, and Mobeck burns with anger at how the situation turned completely around. Chayon tells the warrior that Mobeck hit him on the back to get him into trouble with him. The warrior feels pity for Mobeck for getting involved with such a teacher, while Mobeck notices the looks of pity from the warrior, which drives him crazy. Mobeck wonders what these two are whispering about and feels angry. At the same time, Chayon's eyes shine with a demonic look, announcing in his secret thoughts that things will start getting exciting from now on. Mobeck stops Chayon and asks him with urgency and anger, "What on earth did you say to that warrior?" Chayon smiles with feigned innocence, saying, "Nothing, I simply offered a polite apology." Mobeck stares at Chayon with intense rage, realizing that this scholar is not an ordinary person, and decides inwardly that he must crush this arrogance completely because he has started to genuinely hate him. Mobeck watches Chayon's side profile, noting that he possesses a true noble aura completely different from him. While walking, his eye falls on a man eating noodles, so he smiles maliciously. He suddenly screams at the man, asking him to get out of his way. Then he kicks the noodle bowl with his foot forcefully while announcing that he is a son of the Namgung family. The bowl flies in the air amidst the astonishment of those present, while Chayon looks coldly, wondering the reason for this reckless behavior. The food spills on the ground, causing a chaotic mess in the place. Mobeck stands proudly amidst the chaos while people whisper around him in fear. Mobeck looks maliciously towards Chayon, vowing to him in secret that he will pay the price for challenging him by involving him in paying the costs of these damages. He then steps forward confidently and tells everyone that the scholar standing here will explain what just happened. Mobeck mocks, internally believing that Chayon won't be able to pay. Mobeck grabs Chayon's collar and whispers to him challengingly, asking him to use his clever tongue to try to solve this mess. So Chayon answers him calmly that he will fulfill his wish if that is what he wants. Chayon steps forward while Mobeck looks at him suspiciously, while members of the gang controlling the market whisper. Chayon feels the hostile looks surrounding him, realizing they are directed at him. He raises his hand and addresses the street merchants, announcing a sudden decision regarding the noodle stall, and tells them that all protection fees for the street will change from now on, and points to Mobeck, declaring that the management of these fees will be under the supervision of the son of the Namgung clan himself. Mobeck stares at Chayon in astonishment, while the latter smiles cunningly. While Mobeck refuses internally the idea of managing such a filthy street, Mobeck tries to object to using his clan's name, but stammers angrily. Members of the Dosik gang interrupt them, screaming that they are the ones collecting fees, and threaten Chayon for crossing his limits. Chayon intervenes, criticizing their bad management, and claims in front of everyone that the young master will punish them personally in the name of his clan for their continued extortion, leaving Mobeck confused. Chayon exploits the situation and whispers to Mobeck, provoking him by asking if he is afraid of the Dosik gang. So Mobeck falls into the trap and confirms with a loud scream that he can do the job better than them, so Chayon catches the word and makes the audience witness it. Then Chayon announces that protection fees are set at 1 copper piece per month. Joy spreads over the merchants' faces, while one of them says that kicking the stall was a genius move to prove his power to the Dosik gang. People cheer with enthusiasm and thanks to young master Namgung Mobeck and bow before him. He feels overwhelming euphoria and wonders in astonishment if they are really thanking him, describing him as a hero. A merchant lights up with joy while Mobeck's name resounds in the area. Mobeck raises his hand, greeting the crowds, admitting that the feeling of chanting his name is absolutely wonderful. Chayon watches the scene with a smile, deducing that most troublemakers in the alliance suffer from a lack of attention, and realizes that a little love and attention is the healing cure for them, which clearly shows in Mobeck's happiness now. On the upper floor of a building overlooking the street, 2 ladies watch the scene below with interest, where one of them wonders if her companion knows that scholar walking with the young master. The companion answers that it is the first time she sees him in this street, guessing he is a new scholar hired by the Namgung clan. The silver-haired lady notices that the scholar seems to be about the same age as the brat, Namgung Mobeck, yet he deals with him with skill and complete control, despite being just a scholar who doesn't seem worthy of her full attention yet. The lady concludes that if this scholar can handle the Namgung clan's headache so easily, this means he has already reached a certain level of mastery and skill, and with a cunning look, she orders her companion to investigate him, believing he might be useful for their special mission. Then she changes the course of the conversation, suddenly asking about the location of the precious thing, to which the companion answers that it is stored in the mountain stronghold, and assures her that that place is currently the safest to keep that wealth. Back at the clan headquarters, Chayon sits with provocative calm, counting silver coins very slowly, while Mobeck screams in his face, demanding he tear up the slavery contract immediately after bringing the money. Chayon ignores the young master's screaming completely, continuing to count coldly, 1, 2, 3, wondering sarcastically if there is a coin missing. He continues counting at a killingly slow pace, which drives Mobeck crazy, feeling ignored and insulted. Chayon reaches the number 5, while Mobeck is about to explode with anger, vowing to kill him. Mobeck screams, cursing the cunning scholar, while Chayon holds a silver piece, contemplating it, saying it is very heavy. A young maid enters carrying tea and smiles at Chayon, saying he is truly amazing, as it is the first time for Mobeck to hand over his own money to someone else with such obedience. The maid whispers to herself happily, describing the young master as trash scum, but Chayon hears her clearly thanks to his senses. The girl is terrified and apologizes immediately, claiming the fever made her delirious. So Chayon intervenes to save the situation, saying he knows a little medicine and will perform some acupuncture on her. The maid is surprised upon hearing that, and remembers her sick mother bedridden for a long time. Chayon tells her he will treat her quickly and asks her kindly to gather anyone else who needs treatment in the clan, so the girl thanks him with a bow of appreciation. A glint shines in Chayon's eyes as he decides to start the rehabilitation process of the brat Mobeck seriously, starting with fixing the environment surrounding him. He goes back in his memory when he was studying medicine in the archives to treat his mother's illness, where he discovered two amazing facts. The first fact concerns his mother, who he discovered possesses the supreme purple star body. It is a body blessed by heaven, or in other words, a body with an absolute constitution. He realized her illness stems from this strong physical structure that her human body cannot withstand, which is why she was not affected by any medicine or acupuncture all those years. Luckily, he found that there is only one herb that interacts with her condition, which is the dawn spirit flower, and despite not knowing where it grows, its mere existence in this world gave him hope. As for the second fact, it concerns his unique physical constitution. Being born to a mother possessing the supreme purple star body, he inherited from her the special, heavenly martial body. Once he passed the age of 20, his senses began to develop at a tremendous speed, and his body entered a state of transformation to become the perfect vessel for martial arts, enabling him to absorb any knowledge he desires easily, whether astronomy, medicine, or music. However, every special structure comes with a fatal flaw. The heavenly martial body carries the fate of the shattered army star. Unless he absorbs the energy of the remaining 6 stars of the Big Dipper to stabilize his body, once he passes the age of 20, the star of madness will explode inside him, transforming him into a madman controlled only by physical desires, and he will end up with an early and tragic death. To avoid this dark fate, he must find 6 people who possess the star energy, to absorb their energy and prevent himself from turning into a lustful demon and dying young. The echo of one truth resonates in his mind, that only in this way can he save his mother. The scene shifts to a huge building, where a man is thrown with tremendous force from inside to smash the wooden doors and fall to the ground. The man lies in pain, whispering to leave quickly because the place has become extremely dangerous. Someone approaches with steady steps, so the injured man tries to warn him while trembling. But the comer was none other than Chayon, who was looking precisely for the noisiest and most chaotic place, finding before him a scene of destruction and a man sitting amidst the debris drinking wine. Chayon addresses the sitting man, describing him as a brat who cannot control the star of madness energy, while the man continues drinking indifferently. The man gets angry and crushes the cup with his bare hand, wondering who dares to speak to him with such disrespect. Chayon reveals his opponent's identity immediately. He is Ping So-eun, son of a Murim Alliance elder, then opens his fan in preparation. Chayon introduces himself with a confident smile, announcing he comes from the Murim Alliance inspection office. Back to the present, the maid notices Chayon is lost in thought and asks if he is okay. He answers her that he was just recalling some old memories. The scene moves to Cheongsim Tea House, where the place has turned into a temporary clinic where Chayon treats patients with needles. He inserts the needles with high skill and precision, while the girl, Hua Young, watches him in amazement. He finishes treating a patient and presses with his hand on the pain spot to relieve it, amidst looks of gratitude from those present. Hua Young, the owner of the tea house, thinks about the strange contradiction of this man. Previously, he treated that brat like a small child, and now he uses difficult long needles with extreme proficiency. She realizes his skill in acupuncture surpasses most doctors, and confirms the correctness of her decision to investigate him. Chayon writes a prescription with ink and brush, while patients look at him with great respect, calling him scholar. An old woman steps forward shyly, offering him some eggs as payment for fees, apologizing because this is all she owns. Chayon smiles gently and accepts the eggs, thanking her, confirming they look fresh and he will eat them with appetite. Then he surprises everyone by giving her the prescription along with a bag of money to buy medicine. The old woman panics and refuses to accept the money, saying they cannot accept that too. Chayon insists on his stance, claiming they are all one family serving young Master Namgung and must help each other, adding that he got unexpected money recently. Everyone thanks him with deep emotion, so he smiles at them warmly and asks them to return to their homes because it is late. After everyone leaves, Chayon performs stretching exercises for his tired body, while Hua Young bows to him respectfully. Chayon thanks her for lending him the tea house late at night. She replies that his help was great. She invites him to visit them anytime, promising to prepare an inner seat next time to avoid gossip. Chayon thanks her, noting to himself that the tea house owner is younger and more beautiful than he thought. Suddenly, a fantasy with her raids him, and he feels severe turbulence making him sweat. He clutches his chest in fear, wondering what he was just thinking about, and realizes he must find the people possessing the Big Dipper energy quickly before it's too late. Outside, Hua Young leaves the place, and the princess asks her about the progress of the investigation. Hua Young answers with a detailed report. Chayon Tai-san, born in Wuhan, his family was influential but fell and became impoverished nobles after his father's death and mother's illness. Hua Young points out that his character seems respectable, but he has many enemies because of his past. He worked in the inspection office, where he revealed and punished all kinds of corruption and did not hesitate to bring down division leaders or even pavilion masters, earning him many merits and enmities at the same time. He was strict to the point that he toppled a Murim Alliance elder, and it is said his persistence made even ghosts follow him, giving him the title Ghost Scholar. It seems the Alliance felt a heavy burden due to his campaign against corruption, so they sent him to the Namgung clan to get rid of him. But there is something strange that raises suspicion. Rumors indicate he masters martial arts as well, and is on a level matching the rising stars in the Murim Alliance who are approaching the first-rate level. The conversation shifts suddenly to his mother as the lady asks her companion to speak without hesitation about what she discovered. Hua Young reveals that after examining Chayon's mother's condition and the medicinal ingredients he buys, she discovered the possibility of her having sun pulse severance disease. The princess's eyes shine, wondering if this is the disease she has been looking for all along. She recalls her memories, as 5 years have passed since leaving the North Sea Ice Palace, roaming the continent disguised as a doctor in search of this specific disease, realizing she has only 1 year left to live if she doesn't find it. Based on that, she decides she will examine Chayon Taison's mother herself to confirm. It turns out Hua Young is the third guardian of the North Sea Ice Palace, and her mistress orders her to continue watching that scholar closely. Elsewhere, Chayon walks thinking about the Big Dipper, wondering about the whereabouts of those possessing the star energy. He knows those born with this energy are destined to reveal themselves somehow, and perhaps made a name for themselves as leaders of their factions, and while deep in thought, he senses someone's presence. Mobeck appears suddenly with a fake smile, calling him teacher. He takes out an old book, claiming it is inherited in his family for a long time, but no one has been able to interpret its true meaning. Mobeck asks with feigned innocence if this book is a martial arts manual, claiming he will try to interpret it himself this time. And since Chayon is his writing teacher, he asks him to help decipher its talismans, claiming complete ignorance of its content. Chayon looks at him suspiciously, wondering to himself why this brat asks him for a favor and what he is planning. But he decides to agree to break his boredom, saying he will try. Once Mobeck walks away, Chayon notices his malicious smile and realizes he is plotting a new scheme. Mobeck laughs in secret, believing that this foolish scholar will fall into the trap of chi deviation if he tries to interpret the book like the others. Chayon realizes the shock, wondering if this brat just handed him a secret manual of the Namgung clan. Mobeck lies on the grass comfortably, mocking Chayon and daring him to try to understand the book. Mobeck believes the manual he gave is not just a normal text, but a martial art that caused the destruction of countless Namgung clan geniuses. He knows that attempting to interpret the chants will lead to blocking the meridians one after another, which will inevitably lead to falling into chi deviation, so he laughs madly watching from afar waiting for Chayon's fall. But Chayon sits quietly under the clear sky, reading the book carefully. He reads the phrase, "Extreme simplicity is the same as extreme complexity, since the great Tao is formless." He repeats the phrase in his mind, absorbing the deep meaning hidden from others. Chayon realizes the book contains profound principles of a supreme martial art, making him drool with excitement instead of falling into the trap. Chayon reads the book with intense focus, realizing that hasty interpretation will inevitably lead to chi deviation, and instead of just reading the text, he decides to try absorbing the verses directly with his body. Meanwhile, the young maid enters carrying good news, telling him with overwhelming happiness that her mother's condition has improved significantly after taking the medicine he prescribed last time, adding that others who took the medicine are also impressed by his medical skills, offering him help with anything he needs as a way of repaying the favor. Chayon seizes the opportunity immediately, admitting he actually needs some help, asking her if they have a wooden sword in the dormitory. The maid finds his request strange. The scene shifts to Mobeck, who screams at the maid asking him for his wooden sword for Chayon. Mobeck draws his real sword threateningly, while the maid trembles in fear before him. He points his sharp blade towards her, making her scream begging for mercy. Mobeck throws his real sword towards her, mocking and demanding she forget the wooden sword and use this real sword instead. And not only that, he throws a variety of other weapons, challenging him to use everything he can. The scene shifts to Chayon, who picks up the wooden sword calmly and begins executing flowing movements, muttering words, formless ripple, silent dispersion, crossing boundaries. Chayon notices the chants are mixed with esoteric Buddhist ideology, making it more complex. He realizes that to master this art, he must understand the locations and meanings of the 7 spiritual meridians mentioned in esoteric Buddhism, not the usual Taoism. Mobeck laughs in secret maliciously, confident the book's complex structure will lead Chayon inevitably to chi deviation. But what Mobeck ignores is that Chayon read an ancient text on esoteric Buddhism in the Murim Alliance library a long time ago, and he knows the exact location of these spiritual lines. Chayon focuses his energy, targeting the 7 original blood points. And with a quick and precise movement, he waves the wooden sword, realizing that this way he can reach the secret essence of the sword technique. He thinks there is no other person in the Murim who can do this, as he is the only one who knows Sanskrit, and continues applying the art he learned. Chayon deduces that the creator of this martial art likely wanted to use the power of these spiritual lines, but he also realizes that using standard internal energy would reduce the power and make the technique lose its value. His eyes shine with deep understanding, and he continues training vigorously. Chayon continues his training until sunset, sweat dripping from his wooden sword. He realizes attempting to pump internal energy into all 7 lines at once would cause chi deviation, even if he knew their locations. He thinks that if he explained this to the Namgung clan, he would be treated as a thief of the clan's art, and they would never be able to accept that a mere scholar managed to solve a puzzle his family failed to solve for ages. After finishing, Chayon presented a gold coin, telling her she could consider it pocket money. The maid insists helping him is her duty, but Chayon insists again, thanking her. He tells her he will go out for a while, and if anyone asks about him, he will return late in the evening. In a shop, Chayon asks about a large herb shop in the area, and is guided to the place. While walking in the street, he wonders to himself if he will find any medicinal herbs that could help treat his mother. Suddenly, a gang member spots him and screams that he found the wanted person. Gang leader Doseki appears angry, wondering if Chayon realizes the amount of money they lost because of him. Gang members surround Chayon, carrying clubs and weapons, reminding him they heard the Namgung clan would take over collecting protection fees for the Northern Road. Doseki asks Chayon to tell the clan to let them collect fees again, so Chayon asks him coldly for the reason driving him to do that. Chayon threatens him that if he has a complaint, take it to the young master, warning him against risking his only life for mere protection fees, asking him challengingly if he really thinks he is capable of dealing with the Namgung clan. Doseki laughs mockingly, revealing they know he has no real power, and that someone leaked this information to them. Chayon realizes immediately that someone paid them to get rid of him. Chayon opens his fan with a calm smile, guessing the identity of the person who got him into this situation. He asks them sarcastically if they have ever heard of a Murim scholar. Gang members surround him from all sides, while Chayon asks if they ever heard of a scholar using a fan to fight. They mock him, wondering why they would need to know a fan dance, and Doseki orders his men to teach him a harsh lesson. Doseki smiles savagely, asking his men to give him a gentle massage. One of the men attacks with a high jump, while Chayon stands firmly. Chayon asks if they know a certain fact, confirming he became certain of it after reading a book a short while ago. Chayon closes his fan and blocks the man's strong blow with total ease. Chayon explains that the energy of spiritual meridians acts like a wave, and with a swift movement, he strikes the attacker with the fan, sending a shockwave that knocks him to the ground and makes him scream in pain. Chayon looks, noting that the wave amplifies from a single point and spreads outward. Doseki is stunned, wondering in terror if this bastard actually learned martial arts. Gang men retreat in fear, apologizing to Chayon and admitting they did not show proper respect to the scholar. Chayon smiles cunningly, asking them why they suddenly act like chivalrous heroes, and asks them to stop this nonsense because he still has matters to check. Doseki trembles and asks him to wait a moment. Moments later, Chayon asks for his name. He answers with a trembling voice and swollen face, Ibdo Swiggy. Chayon realizes he means Doseki, and warns them all while they are kneeling before him that if he hears a mere whisper about them collecting protection fees on the Northern Road again, he threatens to break every bone in their bodies personally, and make them crawl on the ground for the rest of their lives. The gang members thank him with fear and gratitude for letting them go easily this time. As they leave, Chayon stops suddenly, realizing there is still something else he must check, causing Doseki anxiety again. Doseki and his men continue apologizing in fear, while Chayon opens his fan coldly, wondering if he should continue disciplining them a little. After some time, Chayon reaches the Hall of 100 Herbs, the largest herb shop in the area. He notes the shop is huge, thinking to himself that if his opponents were a bit stronger, he could have tested the depth of the technique better, considering what happened a wasted opportunity. He enters the shop remembering how the spiritual wave energy left nothing intact before it, thinking of making a fan out of iron to withstand his power. Inside the shop, Mobeck spots a familiar person, stopping suddenly, forgetting what he came for. He sees a beautiful lady with silver hair, stunned by her breathtaking beauty, considering her one of the 3 most beautiful women he has seen in his life. But he is surprised when Mobeck suddenly appears in front of her, introducing himself as from the Namgung clan, asking her with unusual politeness for her name. The princess looks at him coldly, wondering what this brat is doing here, telling him she has a lot of work and asks him to leave. Mobeck insists on knowing her name before leaving, so she interrupts him, saying she is a doctor and only stopped to buy some herbs. Mobeck is surprised she is a doctor, remembering immediately rumors about a female doctor treating people for free in Hefei recently. He asks if she is Lady Young Sobin. She nods affirmatively. Chayon thinks to himself that a beauty like her offering free treatment must have an ulterior motive. At that moment, Mobeck pretends to be in pain suddenly, claiming his head hurts badly and asks her to examine him. The princess refuses coldly, saying she is busy and will see him later, as Mobeck tries to chase her. Chayon appears suddenly in the shop, surprising both. Mobeck asks him what he is doing here. Chayon answers simply he came to buy necessary herbs, while Mobeck claims he came to buy medicine for himself. Chayon glimpses the paper Mobeck is holding, reading the name Sistanch Wisdom Soup, mocking in secret, wondering if this brat plans to use a potency tonic. Mobeck reads what is written below the name, to improve concentration, wondering sarcastically why this brat needs something like that. Mobeck tries to hide the paper quickly, while Chayon looks at him meaningfully, wondering if this kind of art is what sparks the brat's passion for study. Suddenly, Mobeck realizes something and asks Chayon eagerly if he interpreted the manual he gave him, asking him seriously if he should be wandering slowly like this if he interpreted the chants, hinting he should be busy training. Chayon laughs maliciously in secret, telling him he already finished interpreting some verses, but it is extremely difficult. Mobeck feels disappointed, saying he had high hopes for him as a Jinshi-level scholar, but he seems disappointing. Chayon smiles in secret, realizing he finished the interpretation perfectly, but prefers to keep it a secret. Enthusiasm appears on Mobeck, requesting Chayon to tell him what he interpreted. Chayon is surprised by Mobeck's sudden happiness, wondering if he actually hoped for his success. Chayon asks suddenly if it is safe to talk about the interpretation in a place like this, noting that merely reciting 2 lines might not be understood by anyone. Mobeck asks him to speak quickly. Chayon begins reciting the interpretation, while Mobeck listens with increasing astonishment. His eyes widen in shock, disbelieving that this scholar interpreted the book with such precision. Mobeck realizes Chayon is not just an ordinary scholar, but a unique genius, as his interpretation matches exactly the interpretation said to be closest to the truth in his family's history, and none of the 5 scholars he hired previously managed to show such ability in this short time. Chayon asks in astonishment if Mobeck really understood what he said. Chayon confirms with a confident smile. Mobeck screams, calling him writing teacher with great enthusiasm, while Chayon looks at him wondering about this sudden shift in his attitude. Mobeck tells him guests from the Yuge clan will visit them the day after tomorrow, and Chayon asks coldly what that means. Mobeck explains that among the guests is a friend his age named Yuge Do-won, so Chayon remembers seeing him a few times in the alliance, though Do-won doesn't know him. Mobeck asks Chayon to attend the gathering too, tempting him with good food and fine wine. Chayon realizes in secret that Mobeck wants him to help in this usual gathering of brats, which explains his need for wisdom soup. Chayon remembers the Yuge clan values knowledge more than martial arts, and Yuge Do-won is known for his high education compared to other young masters, and it is said he loves showing off in these gatherings using the 4 arts: poetry, music, calligraphy, and painting. Chayon smiles sarcastically in secret, realizing Mobeck wants to use him as someone with nothing to demand but pride, to enter a battle of pride with other brats. Chayon's eyes shine with excitement, eager to see a brat being humiliated by another brat, considering it an unmissable entertainment show. Mobeck asks him again about his opinion on joining, so Chayon agrees immediately. While describing in secret the battle of brats as interesting, suddenly Chayon feels sharp pain in his chest and clutches his heart. Chayon wonders in secret if this is due to the influence of the lady he saw earlier and realizes he needs to find the 7-star energy quickly before his condition worsens. Mobeck asks him rudely what he is looking at, saying if he doesn't want to go, he should say so. Chayon smiles cunningly, thinking that the more he looks at him, the more he feels energy similar to Peng Soan's energy, and decides to investigate the matter. Chayon agrees to go, but sets 2 conditions. Mobeck asks him with annoyance what those 2 conditions are. Chayon requests permission to check Mobeck's pulse at the wrist, so Mobeck is surprised and asks the reason. Chayon explains he saw him preparing wisdom soup earlier, and this soup stimulates the mind and if taken incorrectly might harm the brain. Mobeck reminds him that internal energy entering wrongly through the wrist pulse causes internal injuries, wondering sarcastically if he asks to examine him over some soup. Chayon asks if he isn't afraid the soup will destroy his martial arts level. Mobeck agrees reluctantly, extending his hand to Chayon. Chayon holds Mobeck's wrist, deciding to inject a little spiritual energy to see the reaction, hoping his visit to the Namgung clan won't be in vain. Chayon feels faint but certain energy, wondering in astonishment if this is the Wookiee star. Mobeck asks anxiously if there is a problem, so Chayon reassures him with a broad smile that everything is fine, and his brain energy is strong and the medicine won't harm him. Mobeck feels chills from Chayon's strange smile, believing he is impressed by his intelligence. Mobeck asks about the second condition, so Chayon answers with a sly smile, watching your training. Mobeck is surprised and asks why he wants that. Chayon explains that an ancient clan like Namgung has its own symbols and path, and to interpret the chants in the book accurately, he needs to understand the principles of the clan's other martial arts, and watching Mobeck's movements will help him understand the meaning accurately. Mobeck expresses his surprise at Chayon's interest in watching his training, noting that scholars usually look down on martial arts and consider them barbaric movements. But he agrees enthusiastically, considering that Chayon's desire to observe the training to genuinely interpret the chants is what makes him a true scholar. Mobeck plots maliciously in secret, deciding that he will make Chayon interpret the manual he is currently learning as well. If he succeeds, it is good, and if he fails, it doesn't matter. Mobeck agrees out loud, but sets a condition that Chayon must interpret the martial art he is currently learning too. Mobeck asks Chayon to come tomorrow, while Chayon smiles cunningly in secret, realizing that his plan is going well. The next day, Mobeck asks eagerly whether Chayon will show him the interpretation or not, so Chayon answers coldly to forget about it and hands him a book. Mobeck reads the book's title, Limitless Azure Sky Sword Arts, and is struck with astonishment. Chayon wonders in amazement why Mobeck is showing him these secret manuals, then looks at him suspiciously, wondering if he is completely crazy. He asks him seriously how he got this book, and if it is acceptable to show a clan's secret technique to an outsider. Mobeck answers simply that it is fine because he truly wants to master it. Mobeck boasts of his superior talent, claiming he will master it faster than his brothers. He reassures himself that Chayon worked in the Murim Alliance and knows the laws well, so there is no need to worry about information leakage. Mobeck asks Chayon to read the chants and interpret them for him arrogantly. He offers him 300 taels of silver as a fee, and Chayon reminds him to make it a banknote and not heavy coins this time. Mobeck begins to display his sword skills, executing aerial moves and powerful kicks. Chayon watches the movements carefully, describing the sword art as a song towards the infinite sky, and admiring its beauty. Mobeck screams loudly with every strike, which annoys Chayon and distracts his focus. He covers his ears in annoyance, complaining about the noise that prevents him from reading. He then screams in Mobeck's face to shut his mouth, explaining to him that he must conserve his energy. He tells him that this sword art requires preserving breath until a single strike, and that screaming only disperses internal energy. Mobeck continues training silently this time, and his movements become more fluid and focused. Mobeck notices the massive difference, as he feels greater power and higher speed. Chayon smiles with satisfaction, advising him to train more seriously to manifest that energy, promising to take it with gratitude when the time comes. Mobeck jumps into the air gracefully and executes a powerful landing. He continues his fast and precise movements, while tree leaves fall around him. Mobeck throws his sword on the ground, disbelieving what he achieved. He admits with astonishment that he lacked the breath control to finish the first form previously, but today he completed it for the first time. He asks Chayon enthusiastically how he knew that, so Chayon thinks to himself that he only said it because he was annoying and noisy. Chayon opens the book, pointing out that the text clearly says conserve breath, and that common sense dictates that the higher the level of martial art, the less wasted breath. Mobeck is shocked, confirming that he read the text dozens of times and did not notice that. Chayon holds a candle in his hand and asks Mobeck about a specific verse of poetry describing the steadiness of a candle flame that does not flicker, inquiring smartly about the reason for using the candle flame analogy specifically. Mobeck suddenly realizes the hidden meaning, declaring that the intention is not the steadiness of the body itself, but the control of breathing so that no breath escapes outward to disturb the flame. Mobeck clutches his head in amazement, realizing that this deep interpretation is not found even in the clan's official explanations, and wonders in shock if this is truly the level of a scholar with a Jinshi degree. Mobeck admits with intense admiration to Chayon's brilliance, and acknowledges that he managed to grasp the form of the movements and execute them, but he lacks knowledge of the chants that follow. He looks at his hands with regret, explaining that he can imitate the movements physically, but is unable to express the essence of the technique because he is ignorant of the meaning behind those moves. Chayon asks him disapprovingly if he really doesn't know, and challenges him to perform the movements in front of him if his understanding is incomplete, which provokes Mobeck's confusion and objection. Chayon imposes his control over the situation, reminding him sternly that he is the teacher and the other is the student, wondering sarcastically how learning can take place if the teacher is the one bowing to the student, and coldly gives him the choice to drop the matter if he doesn't want to. Chayon pretends to be ready to leave, hinting that he will go see young Master Lee instead of him, which causes Mobeck to panic. Chayon presses a sensitive button, pointing out that Mobeck's older brother is training in a similar technique, and asks him challengingly if it is hard for him to show some respect to his teacher. As Chayon looks at Mobeck's provoked features, he thinks of an exciting possibility, that young master Namgung Mobeck might be the first among the direct lineage of the clan to manage to reach the secret essence of the limitless azure sky sword arts, which causes Mobeck a shock that paralyzes his thinking. Enthusiasm ignites in Mobeck's eyes, and he clenches his fists tightly, screaming with enthusiasm and acceptance of the challenge, confirming that he will do it. Mobeck attempts to use phrases of respect with a broken and unusual accent, so Chayon corrects his style immediately, scolding him. The scene shifts to the training grounds, where the clan leader walks with steady steps inspecting the area. The leader hears the commotion and thinks anxiously that brat might be tormenting the new scholar in the market again, resolving to scold him severely if he caused the scholar's expulsion. But he is surprised to hear Mobeck's voice asking for more, and sees Chayon hitting Mobeck with a stick for correction while the latter obeys. The leader watches from afar as Chayon directs his student to focus on the meaning of the chants, not just physical movement, so the leader wonders in amazement if this scholar is really teaching him martial arts. Mobeck screams, answering, "Yes, master," in a loud voice, which stuns the leader to see his rebellious son, who barely respects his older brothers, speaking with extreme politeness to a simple scholar. He strokes his beard with relief, realizing that the rumors about Chayon's ability to rehabilitate troublemakers were true and that his youngest son is finally starting to turn into a proper human. The leader decides he must reward Scholar Chayon generously, but at that moment Chayon shouts the words, "Azure Sky." Chayon continues his explanation to Mobeck, asking him to watch closely and focus on the fact that the name of the technique itself contains the word sky. The leader's features change to horror and shock, wondering if the scholar has just revealed the clan's secret technique. The leader's anger ignites, believing his son has divulged clan secrets to a stranger, and decides to intervene immediately to arrest both of them. But before he moves, he hears Chayon asking Mobeck to think carefully, explaining that if he removes the unnecessary branches from the chants, the matter ultimately boils down to one truth. The leader stops in his tracks upon hearing Chayon reciting the chants deeply. Mountains stand tall, yet they remain under the heavens, and waters flow deep, yet they run over the earth. The words echo with images of breathtaking nature, showing the majesty of mountains and the depth of water in perfect harmony. Mobeck sits in a meditative posture, closing his eyes and recalling his teacher's words about the relationship of mountains to the sky and water to the earth. He dives into his imagination, realizing that no matter how high the mountain, it exists under the sky, and no matter how deep the water. Mobeck opens his eyes in his inner vision, finding himself immersed in clear blue water from which a bright light radiates, having reached a state of deep comprehension. Chayon watches his student with a sly smile, realizing that Mobeck found the required mental image in moments, and certain that he possesses truly rare martial talent. Behind them, the clan leader watches the situation from a distance. Drops of sweat begin to pour from Mobeck's face, and his eyes shine with a strange green flash as he mutters to himself that he is starting to understand a little, as if the path has finally become clear before him. He rises suddenly with a fluid movement, waving his sword in a wide circular motion, deducing that there is nothing greater than the sky, and that the sky is what embraces all things. He raises his sword high towards the horizon, realizing that this is the essence of the azure sky, while Chayon asks him as he closes the book if the vision has started to become clear to him now. Mobeck steadies his sword, pointing it directly towards the sky, and screams that the azure sky extends endlessly and expands without limits, and this is the true meaning of the word limitless. Massive energy ignites in his eyes and on the blade of his sword, and he prepares to launch a powerful strike. Mobeck strikes the air with destructive force, sending a wave of energy that splits the sky, and he explodes, laughing madly with overwhelming happiness at his success in executing the technique, screaming that this feeling is truly wonderful. He turns towards his teacher with intense enthusiasm, his eyes shining, asking him for more guidance and what he should do next. Chayon smiles calmly and explains to him with a philosophical example that a bird soaring in the sky does not follow a specific method to flap its wings, but flies freely. And he continues advising him that if he wants to fly freely, he only has to spread his wings wide towards the sky, explaining that the limitless azure sky sword arts are only mastered by those who can truly liberate themselves. Chayon approaches him with a meaningful smile, reminding him that he lived his whole life as a rebellious and unrestrained brat, and therefore he knows the feeling of freedom more than anyone else. Chayon's words fall like a thunderbolt on Mobeck's ears, so he stands stunned, absorbing what was said to him. He places his hand on his chest, wondering in amazement if his reckless lifestyle was the reason for his understanding of the meaning of freedom. He begins to laugh hysterically and intermittently, disbelieving the strange irony. He looks at his trembling hand, admitting that chills run down his spine, and realizing with irony that he previously prided himself on understanding the essence of martial art, but he was delusional. Meanwhile, the features of the clan leader who was watching everything change, admitting in his heart that his own realization was incomplete, and that his vision was narrow due to the weight of responsibility placed on his shoulders as the clan patriarch. He leaves the place with heavy steps, realizing that he would never have been able to reach the true essence of this martial art, considering it a natural result. He whispers to himself bitterly as he walks in the corridors that he never lived a single day freely, while Mobeck screams in the courtyard wondering about the nature of this new feeling sweeping through him. Mobeck floats in his imagination amidst a golden space, realizing that all along he lived as a brat just to feel freedom, rejecting and denying everything around him. But now he wonders if this explosive feeling inside him is true freedom. Chayon watches his student, noting that he is walking a path similar to Peng Soun and might be even faster than him in development. A cunning and evil smile appears on Chayon's face, deciding to move to the next stage of his plan, invoking the fact that the Big Dipper group consists of 7 stars: the Greedy Wolf, the Great Gate, the Literary Star, the Chaste Star, the Prosperity Star, and identifies Mobeck as the Martial Star. He remembers the truth of his body, as those born with the heavenly martial body are born with the fate of the Shattered Army Star, destined to destroy themselves and face death. And to survive this dark fate, Chayon realizes he must absorb the energy of the other stars, just as he obtained the Prosperity Star energy from Peng So-eun previously. Chayon returns to his residence at sunset, and suddenly his features change to anxiety, realizing that something bad has happened. He holds his head nervously, certain that the clan leader listened to the conversation that took place between him and Mobeck, as his sharp senses picked up the leader's distinctive scent on the way. Chayon realizes the gravity of the situation. For an outsider, seeing a clan's secret manual is a matter that leads directly to death, and expects the leader to summon him at any moment. Indeed, the maid opens the door suddenly, telling him that the patriarch requests an urgent meal with him, so Chayon agrees with apparent calm. The maid leaves to tell him she will wait for him, but she wonders in confusion how he knew about the matter before she told him, and why his features look so dark and scary. Chayon enters the room where the luxurious dinner table is, finding clan leader Nam Gung-hak waiting for him. The leader introduces his wife sitting beside him, so Chayon bows with extreme politeness, expressing his honor to meet the lady of the house. The wife looks at her husband with a playful, reproachful look, asking him why he lied to her. She smiles gently as she explains that her husband didn't tell her that scholar Chayon is extremely handsome, noting that it has been a long time since she saw a man this handsome. The leader rectifies the situation, trying to soften the atmosphere, and apologizes to Chayon for summoning him late in the evening. Chayon replies humbly that the invitation is an honor, so the lady points out that she heard about his wide fame even inside the Murim Alliance, so Chayon admits he gained some reputation indeed. The lady smiles, clasping her hands with admiration, considering that calling the elimination of corruption and vice infamy is something to be admired, not ashamed of. The lady changes the course of the conversation, asking Chayon if he knows a poem or a melody that speaks of fighting injustice, likening him to the subject of the poem. Chayon fulfills her request skillfully, reciting verses of poetry saying, "Injustice cannot rise above the towering pine, and the winds will inevitably shake it," while happiness appears clearly on the lady's face. She praises him, saying that what she heard was true. He is not only versed in poetry and calligraphy, but in painting and music as well. Chayon tries to be humble, saying they are just hobbies, and while the friendly atmosphere prevails, he begins to wonder inside himself if his previous anxiety was unnecessary. Suddenly, the leader slams his hand on the table forcefully, cutting the laughter and changing the room's atmosphere in an instant, amidst his wife's astonishment and Chayon's silence. The leader's eyes glow red amidst the shadows, and he orders Chayon in a commanding and scary tone to stop the pleasantries and start talking about official business, demanding complete honesty. The leader narrows his eyes threateningly, reminding Chayon that he knows well that viewing the secret techniques of this clan is a crime punishable by death. The leader confronts him with a direct and sharp question about whether he saw the chance of the clan's secret technique, while sweat pours from Chayon's face, who realizes he is cornered. The leader repeats his question with a voice filled with anger and threat, trying to extract a confession. Chayon realizes the leader knows about the conversation between him and Mobeck, and feels immense pressure crushing his chest, thinking of a way to survive this situation. Chayon decides with quick wit to direct his speech and appeal towards Lady Mobeck's mother instead of the leader, realizing her son is her weak point that he must exploit. Chayon admits quietly, saying yes, justifying it as being at the request of the young master himself, but the leader mocks him coldly, asking if that is his only excuse. Chayon begins explaining his position, clarifying that when Mobeck offered him the Azure Sky Sword arts, he saw something deep in his desperate eyes, and felt obliged to know this art immediately. Chayon claims smartly that he realized this martial art is the only thing capable of correcting the reckless young master's behavior and fixing his incomplete foundation. The leader questions his words, denouncing the idea of using a secret technique merely to fix the behavior of a brat. But Chayon quotes an ancient wisdom saying, "Remove one evil, 10 virtues grow." pointing out that this saying applies perfectly to the young master's current state. And while the leader tries to object, considering them mere excuses to view secrets, Chayon interrupts him, confirming it is not limited to that only, but relates to what lies inside the young master. Chayon announces confidently that he saw the hero's temperament inside Mobeck, confirming that if only his mischievous nature were eliminated, he possesses the potential to become a great hero whose name shakes the world and might even surpass the genius Peng So-eun. The mother gasps in shock and amazement, disbelieving that her mischievous youngest son is being compared to a genius like So-eun. The leader looks at Chayon seriously, demanding him to be honest, and asks if Mobeck is in reality just a person of average abilities born with acceptable talent and a martial body only. Chayon paints a moving rhetorical picture, explaining that the young master possesses a free spirit, but because he couldn't spread his wings like a bird, he felt trapped in a cage like a chicken or a duck, and his reckless actions were nothing but an attempt to break his feeling of self-loathing. The mother is deeply affected and covers her mouth weeping, pained by the idea that her son felt all this all along, while the leader considers the story a great exaggeration. But the mother screams at her husband, interrupting him, confirming that Chayon is right, and blames herself and her husband because they didn't try to understand their youngest son's heart and sufficed with scolding him for his waywardness. The lady of the Namgung clan places her hand on her chest in pain and thanks Chayon with a trembling voice because he helped her realize the extent of suffocation her youngest son felt all those years. But the emotional moment is broken by her husband, the leader, screaming suddenly, reminding her sharply that one of the clan's great arts has been leaked to an outsider, which is something that cannot be simply overlooked. The wife starts and confronts her husband with tears in her eyes, admitting she is not a martial artist and doesn't understand these matters. But as a mother, the arts of Azure Sky, or even the Emperor's Sword, are worth nothing compared to her son's life, and announces her readiness to sell those secrets gladly to save him. The leader stares at her in astonishment while she continues her speech firmly, confirming that her mischievous son is more precious to her than any martial arts manual. Suddenly, the lady hits the table forcefully, proposing a terrifying solution to end the predicament, which is cutting off one of Chayon's arms and forgiving him afterwards, as he won't be able to use martial arts, causing Chayon terror and shock in the background. The leader looks with complete seriousness, while Chayon rushes to bow in extreme panic, swearing to them in a loud voice. Chayon screams pleadingly, promising that if he leaks Namgung clan arts to anyone else, he accepts having both his arms cut off without hesitation, and adds with desperate determination that even if his head is cut off, he won't hold any grudge. So the leader looks at him with a piercing gaze and decides to give him a last chance to prove his loyalty. The leader reveals that a delegation from the Yuge clan will visit them tomorrow and expects they will request a friendly duel aiming to humiliate his youngest son as usual. The leader evokes a painful image of his son defeated under his opponent's feet, pointing out that his son couldn't win against him even once. Sweat pours from Chayon's face as he asks anxiously if the meaning is the necessity of ensuring young Master Mobeck's victory in tomorrow's duel. The leader confirms this with a confident smile, promising him that if he succeeds, he will appoint him to a position giving him the official right to view the clan's secret techniques. Chayon's eyes widen in surprise, but the leader completes his terrifying condition that in case of failure, Chayon will have to offer his head as the price for that. The leader points with his thumb towards his neck, confirming that a man of Chayon's intelligence knows exactly what this agreement means. Chayon falls silent for a moment, analyzing the situation quickly, and realizes the patriarch's intention is clear. He wishes to keep him by his side in the clan, but imposing this harsh test on him is merely a means to find a strong and convincing justification before the elders and council of the Namgung clan to hire him. The leader winks, saying he won't speak further, and challenges him that if he is truly capable of giving wings to his youngest son, the boy will be able to fly freely. Chayon clasps his fists and bows deeply and respectfully before the leader, accepting the challenge and the impossible mission. The couple leaves the hall, and the wife apologizes to her husband for her impulsive talk earlier regarding cutting the arm, so the leader reassures her that he understands her heart and fear for their youngest son. The wife smiles and asks him slyly if he intended to hire Chayon from the beginning, and if he knows the real reason for his coming to the clan, so the leader smiles, embracing her. The leader explains to his wife that this man faced the Murim Alliance elders and put his life on the line, and withstood all kinds of threats as a simple member of the inspection office, wondering why a man with this martial spirit would leak their clan secrets, and adds with admiration that Chayon is the person who turned Peng So-eun, who was known as Scum, into a real human, to the point that the Peng clan itself considers him their benefactor. The wife expresses her overwhelming happiness that her husband brought someone like this specifically for their son, Mobeck. The next morning, the sun rises on the majestic Namgung clan courtyards, where a state of anticipation prevails. The Yuge clan delegation arrives, and their leader wonders arrogantly why Mobeck hasn't appeared to receive them. Yuja Do-won appears with a malicious smile and evil looks, expressing his desire to play with the young master very soon. Meanwhile, in the back training courtyard, Chayon screams in Mobeck's face while the latter waves his sword, demanding him to think deeply about the meaning and not just movements, ordering him to repeat again and again. Mobeck screams agreeing while sweating, and continues training with strenuous effort, while the courtyard door opens slowly. A stranger in yellow clothes enters, mocking the lowness of the Namgung clan gate. The visitor turns with a provocative smile and a face full of cunning, addressing Mobeck with the title Little Brother, and surprised by his presence there. The man in yellow continues to smile sarcastically, calling Mobeck Little Brother in a provocative tone, while Mobeck looks at him with clear annoyance, asking him coldly if he finally arrived. Yug asks him mockingly if he is training in preparation for their upcoming duel, pointing out with a sly smile that Mobeck doesn't seem happy to see him despite the long time since their last meeting. Yug expresses his overwhelming happiness, claiming he is almost dying of joy at the thought of facing Mobeck again, exploiting the clear height difference between them to look down on him. Chayon notes in his heart that Yuga looks bigger than he was when he saw him at the Alliance, wondering secretly if he grew taller, describing him as an interesting brat. Yuga continues his provocation publicly, placing his hand on Mobeck's head as if petting a small child, asking sarcastically if he shrunk a little or if he is the one who grew taller, describing him as having become cuter than before. Mobeck pushes his hand away with intense anger, asking him sharply if he traveled all this distance just to brag about his height, so the other pretends innocence and surprise. Yuge laughs mockingly, leaning his body slightly, confirming he has plenty to brag about other than height, listing his skills in martial arts, science, and music, mocking the idea that his bragging is limited to something simple like size. Yuge notices that Mobeck has become more arrogant and bold than before, so he turns suddenly towards Chayon standing in the back, wondering suspiciously if this new scholar is the reason for this change. Yuge screams in Chayon's face with anger and emotion, criticizing him for not greeting and sufficing with fanning himself with his fan arrogantly, demanding him loudly to reveal his name immediately. Chayon points to himself with complete calm, answering he is Chayon Tai-san, so Yuga laughs with hysterical mockery upon hearing the name, commenting sarcastically that this man has a short tongue too. Yuge vows to fix both their habits together, but suddenly his features freeze and his eyes widen in shock and horror upon comprehending the name he just heard. A terrifying image of ghost specters surrounding Chayon materializes in Yuge's imagination, and he realizes in amazement that he is standing before the infamous ghost scholar of the Murim Alliance. Sweat pours from Yuga's face, wondering in confusion and shock why such a dangerous person is in the Namgung clan specifically. Yuga looks towards Chayon, connecting events together, realizing this is the same legendary scholar who changed Peng So-un completely. Chayon approaches him with coldness and confidence, asking him why he is looking at him as if seeing a dead man, increasing the young master's tension and confusion. Yuge stammers, denying that quickly, explaining he thought the scholar would stay at the Peng clan, remembering clearly that Peng So-un told him that. He recalls the memory of his conversation with So-un, who told him he would take the scholar to his clan for a purpose. So Yuga starts doubting the scholar's abilities, wondering to himself if rumors were exaggerated and he wasn't that great. Yuga remembers that Elder Gal, who holds a deep grudge and buried hatred for him, couldn't possibly let him leave the Alliance with his limbs intact, making him strongly surprised he is standing before him now without any injuries. Chayon interrupts him with a confident and provocative smile, confirming he decides his destination and path himself, pointing out he has current business here to finish. Zhuge tries to regain his balance, claiming smartly that this is their first meeting despite the many rumors he heard, as if they met before, but Chayon reminds him coldly that they met several times at the Alliance, assuming the young master doesn't remember. Chayon opens his fan, revealing in a meaningful tone that the inspection office investigated young master Yuga when he caused that incident previously, so Yuga laughs nervously, describing him as a rude scholar. Chayon covers his face with the fan, apologizing with clear sarcasm, justifying his words, saying old habits from his work in the inspection office die hard, which might have caused unintended annoyance to the young master. Anger and astonishment ignite in Yuga's face, while Chayon raises two fingers, quietly explaining an additional piece of information for ranking status. While young master Yuge is 1 year older than young master Namgung, Chayon is 2 full years older than Yuga. Yuga's features grimace and his face turns red from intense rage, showing signs of suppressed anger. Yuga laughs in amazement and disbelief, admitting to himself that this man indeed possesses enough boldness to challenge senior elders and even the great Gal. Zhuge asks with disapproval and sarcasm if the 2-year difference means he expects him to use respectful language with him, describing the matter as laughable and ridiculous. His face approaches Chayon's face challengingly, declaring clearly he will continue speaking without formalities, so Chayon replies, giving him a cold choice that he can also speak without formalities if he doesn't like it, asking, "Shall I?" The bright and cunning smile returns to Chayon's face, announcing simply that as the older brother, it is fine, which strikes Yuga with astonishment and shock, making him scream suddenly that he is a bastard. Mobeck watches the scene in total amazement, realizing in his heart that no matter the skill or age, it is very rare for anyone to dare speak with such comfort and insolence to the direct heir of one of the 5 great clans. Mobeck looks at Chayon with a smile of surprise, certain this man acts boldly as if he has no tomorrow, and the firm stance he showed him on their first day was not just acting but his reality. Mobeck looks at Chayon with eyes full of amazement and appreciation, admitting to himself that the firmness and sharpness the teacher showed in his stance enforced his respect against his will. At that moment, Yug sees Chayon's dark presence as a massive ghost, ordering him to speak without formalities, then asking him threateningly if he should stop, inciting terror in his heart. Du-won tries to salvage the situation and cover his confusion with a fake cough, then invites them to have lunch together in that garden where they met last year, pointing his finger specifically towards Chayon, describing him as an interesting person. Du-won leaves the place with wide steps, while Chayon waves his fan behind him, thanking him sarcastically for his kindness, then explodes laughing, considering little Du-won much funnier than he imagined. Chayon is not satisfied with that, but calls out in a loud and cheerful voice, "Hey little Du-won," making Du-won freeze in his place, filled with rage. Du-won turns with a face boiling with anger and ferocity, his eyes sparking, but continues walking away, leaving Chayon and Mobeck behind. As soon as the guest leaves, Mobeck runs towards Chayon with intense enthusiasm, his eyes shining like a child, shouting with admiration and fascination that teacher Chayon is more wonderful and amazing than he thought. He asks him curiously if rumors were true that he sent Elder Gal the Terrifying to hell, and if he really messes with Yuga Do-won in this direct manner without fear. As they continue walking, Mobeck asks him eagerly if it is true he turned Peng So-eun into a human being. So Chayon notices with a satisfied smile that respectful language started appearing automatically on the young master's tongue. Chayon tells him he will use respectful language with him too from now on, reasoning that the young master has indeed changed after showing comprehension and understanding, which deserves appreciation. Mobeck scratches his head in embarrassment and lack of understanding, admitting he doesn't feel any real change in himself despite the teacher's words. Chayon tells him calmly that Peng So-eun was like that in the beginning too, so Mobeck panics at pronouncing the name Bear, warning him in terror that he will be in big trouble if he calls that person by his name without being friends. Mobeck confirms with fear that that brother is completely different from him. He throws his fists before speaking and might really kill Chayon, while Chayon replies coldly that they are indeed not friends. Chayon smiles slyly, explaining that So-eun is the one who calls him Big Brother. So Mobeck looks at him with a blank stare, believing the teacher is telling silly jokes like someone passing words about stray dogs. Chayon remains silent with a confident smile, allowing doubt to seep into Mobeck's heart, who asks him in amazement and shock if he is serious. The scene moves to a picturesque garden with charming nature, where the two walk and Chayon asks if this is the Garden of Subduing Demons. Mobeck confirms the name and begins narrating the historical story, explaining that 50 years ago a major incident occurred where the demonic cult revolted in the Murim, adding that Namgung clan ancestors who mastered the clan's secret essence performed well at the army's vanguard, but the price was tragic as most lost their lives in that bloody battle. In a sad tone, Mobeck explains that this tragedy is the main reason limitless azure sky sword arts were not fully passed to subsequent generations due to the death of those who mastered them, continuing that they maintain this place to ensure the ancestors' grudge and solid will are not forgotten over time. Chayon understands the deep importance of the place, but they hear music playing from inside, so Chayon realizes the place has great meaning, but is now violated. Mobeck's anger ignites, realizing Du-won summoned female musicians and courtesans to the sacred Garden of Subduing Demons this year, considering it an unforgivable insult. Du-won notices their arrival while lounging relaxedly, welcoming them coldly as if owning the place, while Mobeck trembles with rage at the audacity of summoning courtesans to such a sacred place. Du-won laughs mockingly, explaining that even he, as a direct descendant of the Yuja clan, cannot summon courtesans easily in his home, but here they offer them to a stranger like him quite easily. Du-won describes the Namgung clan as overly generous while the courtesan plays the pipa, and at that moment, Mobeck is about to explode and intervene, but Chayon's hand stops him with a calm touch, asking him not to get emotional. Chayon tells him with a sharp and confident look that he will handle the matter himself, asking the young master only to sit and enjoy what will happen. Chayon enters with a broad and provocative smile, calling Little Do-won again, asking him if he is enjoying playing, provoking Du-won's ire, who glares at him fiercely. Du-won invites them inside coldly, so Chayon responds, dragging the hesitant Mobeck with him inside. Mobeck starts speaking with a shout, but Do-won stands up angrily, grabbing the pipa, snatching it from the player, saying with boredom, "Don't make me laugh." Do-won stands in the center of the hall holding the musical instrument himself, announcing that being alone was boring, so he requested a performance. Then he begins touching the strings masterfully. Do-won plots in his heart cunningly, believing making the player play before them would be a perfect way to embarrass Mobeck and Chayon, deciding to make them listen carefully to realize the difference in level. Do-won's fingers begin caressing the pipa strings skillfully, so sweet melodies resonate throughout the pavilion overlooking the pond, while he harmonizes with his playing, closing his eyes. Chayon listens to the playing, quietly sipping tea, while Mobeck stands with crossed arms, and suddenly, Do-won stops playing sharply, placing his hand on the strings, claiming with feigned regret that his thinking was short and limited. Do-won directs his speech to Mobeck with a provocative smile, saying that since little brother knows nothing but physical training, he likely understands nothing of music and cannot taste it, provoking Mobeck's ire, who yells disapprovingly. Do-won completes his veiled insult with an apology, claiming he forgot to consider Mobeck's ignorance of high arts. Chayon watches this scene intelligently, realizing Do-won tries to distract Mobeck's mind and provoke his anger before the upcoming duel, describing him in secret as a smart and annoying bastard. With a condescending tone, Do-won announces that for the sake of his ignorant brother, he will present and explain the piece he will play, revealing its name is High Mountains and Flowing Waters. But Chayon interrupts him, suddenly staring at the teacup, explaining that this piece is considered the second among the 10 great songs, and is famous as the melody composed by Bo-ya, mourning the death of Jongziki, the only person who understood his sound and music. Do-won is struck with amazement by Chayon's precise knowledge of music, so Chayon confirms confidently that he knows all 10 great songs, and even plays them sometimes. Suddenly, noise pervades outside the pavilion, and Do-won turns towards the door, announcing the timing is perfect because the guest has arrived. Amidst Mobeck and Chayon's confusion, Do-won reveals he summoned some people, wondering disapprovingly how there could be no audience listening to such refined playing, while people gather outside. With a malicious smile, Do-won announces inviting a very special guest, the greatest courtesan in Hefei City. The attendees recognize the coming lady immediately, cheering the name Cheong-yu from Heavenly Pleasure Pavilion, wondering in amazement the reason bringing a lady known as the greatest in playing the zither and pipa to this place. Cheong-yu appears with a splendid look and luxurious clothes, surrounded by an aura of beauty and flowers, followed by an assistant carrying her musical instrument. Everyone is dazzled by her breathtaking beauty. Even Mobeck blushes with shyness and admiration, while crowds whisper that her beauty matches her artistic skill. Chayon looks at Do-won with disdain, describing him as a hateful bastard, realizing he is showing off his authority and influence by being able to invite a figure of Cheong-yu's weight. Chayon deduces Do-won wants a large crowd to witness the event, and wants Cheong-yu to evaluate his playing and his opponent's playing in front of everyone, and as Do-won welcomes the lady, Chayon describes him in secret as a mischievous child with exposed intentions. Do-won turns towards them with a confident smile, announcing the start of evaluating their musical voices, and with a demonic challenging look, confirming he truly looks forward to showing his skills. Meanwhile, the two clan leaders walk in the garden, where one points out that the young masters are holding a friendly duel again this year. The Yuga clan leader asks coldly if the result is clear and predetermined as usual, but the Namgung clan leader laughs lightly, confirming this year will be different, arousing Yuga's curiosity, asking why and if his son Mobeck achieved some kind of enlightenment. The Namgung leader answers sarcastically, stroking his beard, saying, "Enlightenment," then adds mockingly that Mobeck finally started using his head a little, which doesn't seem completely convincing to the Yuga leader. The Yuga leader continues speaking seriously, proposing that since this duel represents their clans, how about betting escort agency shipping rights based on the result? The Namgung leader realizes this cunning old snake tries to settle the agency dispute through a simple duel, but finds the matter amusing. The Yuge leader smiles cunningly and confidently, while the Namgung leader's features change to seriousness and awe. Back inside, Cheong-yu bows politely, thanking their invitation, and Do-won, holding his musical instrument, announces preparations are complete. The place is packed with audience, and Do-won announces the greatest musician in Anhui has arrived to witness the event. Do-won directs his speech to Cheong-yu, asking her to handle the evaluation task, then turns to Chayon, asking him if they will go out to start the duel, inquiring sarcastically if he feels nervous. Chayon laughs, denying feeling nervous and confirming he is excited to play a little, then surprises Do-won with a bold proposal. "Since we are competing, why not play the same song?" Silence and astonishment prevail, and Do-won stands frozen, staring at Chayon, disbelieving this proposal that places technical skill in direct confrontation without any room for manipulation. Du-won agrees to the joint playing proposal with an arrogant smile, but imposes his condition to choose the song as the initiator. He chooses the piece White Snow in Early Spring, with a challenging look, believing it will incapacitate him, but Chayon replies with provocative calm that this piece is basic and he played it a few times before, making Du-won mock in his heart this scholar's fake confidence. Du-won sees White Snow as not a piece that can be mastered in a few attempts, asserting Chayon exaggerates in bragging and lying. Du-won's eyes shine with a scary look, vowing inside he will crush this scholar so hard he won't dare show insolence again. Du-won's fingers begin moving on the pipa strings forcefully, announcing the start of playing with sharp tones. Chong-yu and her blind companion notice immediately a tangible change in airflow inside the hall as soon as playing started. The blind companion whispers that despite losing sight, she can imagine every note falling clearly and heavily like real snowflakes. The melody resonates throughout, arousing the admiration and amazement of attendees watching the scene with fascination. Meanwhile, the two clan leaders arrive at the courtyard, noticing the gathering and music, wondering if the youth are fighting with musical instruments this year. The huge clan leader smiles maliciously, considering his son Du-won is using music as a smart trick to suppress his opponent's spirit before the physical duel, describing him as a smart child. The huge leader turns to the Namgung leader, asking him in surprise if his son Mobeck is good at music too, since he never saw him hold an instrument before. The Namgung leader watches the scene from afar, answering that the player is not his son, but it seems his writing teacher is taking his place in this confrontation. Music fills the place, amidst the huge leader's surprise at this teacher's identity. Du-won continues playing proudly, convinced his performance already reached the level of great masters. He glances contemptuously towards Chayon, mocking inwardly that someone who can barely imitate tones dares pretend before him. His playing intensity increases, addressing Chayon in secret, challenging him to play and humiliate himself before this large audience, considering playing before people not an easy matter. His fingers move with insane speed and high precision on the strings. The fast playing turns into something like a violent blizzard hitting the place, astonishing attendees with the rhythm's power. Du-won's energy flies with the notes, creating a cold and violent atmosphere dominating the hall. Chong-yu comments that fast playing saturated with internal energy raises phantom snow, while the blind companion realizes Du-won fills the void with sound, meaning he didn't learn this art superficially. The huge clan leader looks at his son proudly, recalling he taught him music originally to calm his mischievous nature after causing much trouble, adding admiringly that Du-won reached a level mimicking masters before he realized, encouraging him, silently asking him to break his opponent's spirit from the start. Du-won stops for a moment, panting with a victorious smile, asking Chayon arrogantly for his opinion, calling him an arrogant beginner and demanding him to show his pathetic skills. While Chayon prepares to reply, the Namgung leader asks his wife, whispering who she expects to win, noting Du-won's skills are better than he expected. The wife smiles confidently and calmly, confirming scholar Chayon will win, and when her husband falls silent surprised, tells him to consider it just a woman's intuition. Chayon starts touching his instrument strings with complete calm and intense focus. Suddenly, a single clear and strong note launches from Chayon's strings, causing a ripple in surrounding energy and striking Du-won with a shock, making him tremble. The blind companion analyzes the situation in amazement, explaining they are playing the same song, but their interpretation is completely different. While Du-won focused on the cruelty and coldness of White Snow, Chayon seems to interpret the other side of the song, where a warm and bright feeling overwhelms, as if embodying the arrival of spring amidst snow. Mobeck stands stunned by the magnificence of playing, whispering his teacher's name, while Du-won tries to hide his tension and catch up with the rhythm, commenting nervously that his opponent's playing is not bad. Du-won screams in his opponent's face, announcing challengingly and arrogantly that Chayon won't be a match for him no matter how he tries, continuing to play sharply. Du-won's eyes shine with fierce determination, deciding to use his super playing speed to bury everything and obliterate his opponent's melodies completely under the weight of the blizzard he creates. Chayon smiles cunningly, telling himself dealing with brats is very fun when provoked, deciding he has no choice but to use the wave technique. Chayon focuses his spiritual energy skillfully at his fingertips and with a very light touch, caresses the instrument strings. At that moment, the effect of Du-won's playing starts fading, as phantom snow disappears gradually, replaced by luminous butterflies of energy, amidst the amazement of clan leaders and attendees. Butterflies dance and land peacefully as if spring has actually arrived, applying the true meaning of white snow in early spring, while Chayon realizes with satisfaction that the Seven Stars energy creates ripples harmonizing amazingly with musical instruments. The courtyard ignites with cheers of the audience who got chills, describing the melody as penetrating their bodies and touching their souls from its magnificence. Chayon looks at his hand in deep thought, wondering if he can use this versatile energy in other things like cooking, for example, while Du-won stands frozen from shock and rage. Du-won breaks the silence, demanding Lady Chong-yu give her evaluation immediately, so the lady bows respectfully, describing the performance as majestic. The lady rectifies, saying her young companion will be more accurate than her in judging sound, pointing to the blind girl beside her, explaining she acquired a supernatural hearing sense exceeding ordinary humans, compensating for vision loss. Du-won is struck with amazement and insult, denouncing how a blind child can be better than Heifei's first lady in evaluation, his features changing to anger, but he agrees finally condescendingly, considering her inability to see guarantees him a fair evaluation far from appearances, ordering her to speak. Du-won stands before the blind girl, sweat pouring from him and tension filling his features, asking her to settle the matter and tell everyone whose playing was superior, him or scholar Chayon.